Joining us now, she's back, of course. She's the head coach at Kansas, gold medalist on the U.S. national team in 2000 in the Olympics. One of the greats ever to play red, white, and blue, as well as a great college career over in the great state of Texas A&M. Head coach at Kansas, Jennifer McFalls, joins us here back on In the Circle. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Eric. Thanks for having me on today.
Well, I want to start off, obviously, how has the fall gone for you? I know you just wrapped up playing your last games. What was kind of the big takeaway from this fall and what you've learned from this team?
Well, we had seven freshmen and a transfer, so eight new faces in the program, and that's a lot. We only graduated three last year, so just the I think probably the biggest takeaway from the fall is just looking that we finally have some quality depth in this program. We've got six pitchers on our pitching staff. So just really excited about this group. I mean, they have absolutely busted it from day one. And the freshmen are talented. They're pushing and competing every day for spots. And, just really excited about this group, honestly. I think probably the biggest thing this fall was just getting them some opportunities and some experiences in those games. So, for the most part, they all had pretty equal playing time. It really wasn't about winning and losing in the fall. It was about just mainly just kind of looking at some different combinations defensively, just really just kind of checking some boxes with our newbies and just seeing how things all sort of come together.
What stood out about the new faces that stood out to you as you got to learn them this fall on the field and obviously getting to know them off the field?
Well, first of all, they're great kids. They're talented on the field. They're very coachable. They have great attitudes, and they're very smart kids. They're taking care of business in the classroom too. And so they fit in perfectly with the returners. So the chemistry has been great. And that's a big piece, obviously, especially with so many new faces. So I think it's been a really good mesh so far. And I think there's some players out of the freshman group that are really going to impact our team this spring.
When you look at the mixture of this team, you mentioned you'll only lose three players. You have a lot of new faces, but you also have a group coming back. Who are some of the leaders that has taken shape for this year's team? Is that evolving, or do you have some leaders established already?
Well, we're returning three of our captains that were selected last year. So Lyric Moore, Haley Harper, Ashlyn Anderson are three returning players that they were voted captain last year. They've done a good job so far. I mean, to be real honest, we've had several players that have stepped up in some really solid leadership roles. But those three still, stand out, to me as far as just the everyday stuff and, having those tough conversations when needed. But they're impact players. They're great leaders, and they're doing a fantastic job for us so far.
You mentioned the pitching staff and the quality, the depth that you have. Tell us a little bit more about the pitching staff, what you envision there. Do you see that being by committee? Do you see them having defined roles? Tell us a little bit about your pitching staff.
Well, returning Casey Hamilton, let me back up just a little bit. Last year we had two freshmen and two sophomores. Casey Hamilton being one of those returning sophomores, Savannah DeRoger being the other one, and then our two freshmen being Olivia Bruno and Katie Brooks. So last year for them it was tough. We were thin. We just didn't have the depth that we needed. And, and if, as the spring rolls, if you run into injuries, then you're real thin in the circle. So adding Lizzie Ludwig, she's a freshman pitcher from St. Louis. She just brings us a little bit different dynamic. I mean, she's 6'2". She has a great presence in the circle. She's just really doing a fantastic job for us, getting stronger every day. I think her role will probably be more somebody that comes in and gives us an inning or two in a game that just gives us a different look. Quite honestly, she's not necessarily, it's not about her velocity by any means, but she spins it really well. It's a great drop ball, and she's just working really hard to improve. But I really think just her depth alone and her presence in the circle is just going to give us some really quality innings. I don't think she's a pitcher that's ever going to throw 7 innings for us necessarily, but probably more role playing for her. We added Addison Purvis. She's a transfer from Mississippi State. She didn't get a lot of innings at Mississippi State. She's had some injuries, some things like that. But what I love about her, she's just kind of a bulldog in the circle. She wants the ball. She throws hard. She really wants an opportunity to compete. So she's super hungry. And she's just driven. She's got a little chip on her shoulder because she wants to prove something. And so adding those two and then having, Hamilton, Katie Brooks, Olivia Bruno didn't throw a ton of innings for us last year, but she's thrown a lot more this fall. She's in great shape. She and Sav both are going to give us some really quality innings in the circle this spring.
You mentioned Olivia Bruno, and talk about her accomplishments because she's an incredible athlete, number one, and contributes in so many different ways. Just speak to her and the type of player that she is.
Honestly, she's probably she's the best teammate that any player could ask for. She's so selfless and giving, and her work ethic has just, been off the charts, to be real honest. I think what happened late last spring, she got a taste of what, her potential could really be. And so when we finished up last spring, we sat down and had our end of the season meeting. She started telling me things that were really exciting to me. Like, what do I need to do to be an All-American? How do I get better? What do I need to improve on? And she just took it to heart this summer, and she busted it in the weight room and just getting herself in great shape. She looks amazing. She is just healthy and feels really good. And she's just a player that she comes early every day. She stays late every day. She probably works on the weekends at her game. And, she's just very, very hungry right now to be great. So I just think with her mentality and just the maturity of having a year of experience under her belt, I'm super excited to see what she brings this spring. And I think that she was a player that really just simply needed some confidence, believe it or not. She just really needed the confidence. And so the more confidence she has, obviously, the better she plays. And I think that's really helped her in the circle a little bit this fall. She just looks totally different for us in the circle. So again, not a player, I think, that's going to be an everyday starter in the circle, because obviously she plays a huge role for us at first base and in the offensive lineup. But she and Sav are kind of interchangeable, because Savannah DesRoches also she's a great athlete too. She swings it really well. She can play first base. She can play in the outfield. So having those two, they're kind of interchangeable for us, just giving some different athletic presence defensively as well. But I think primarily you're going to see Casey Hamilton. She's just continues to work and get better and stronger. She's in great shape. So she's probably going to be, for the most part, our number one. And, to be real honest, after that, I'm not exactly sure just yet what that's going to look like. I think we'll find out a lot in February and, before we get into conference. But the nice thing about it is just truly just the depth and that we're going to have in the circle.
That's kind of frightening. Olivia Bruno hit 353, 13 homers, 44 RBIs. Now she gets more confident. That's a kind of a frightening thought for everybody facing her this year. But you mentioned her and Savannah and how versatile they are, interchangeable. Savannah hit 7 homers, 297. Is that something you seek out when you're recruiting players that could be a two-way player who could play or that could play multiple positions to kind of help create depth by having multiple players? Because it's not just about having a ton of bodies on the roster, but it's also, hey, can playing multiple positions, or in those two cases being a two-way player?
Well, I think now with the pitching staffs being bigger, obviously you don't want to have 6 pitchers that are just POs, because they're not going to be very happy, to be real honest, if they're not getting and so having players like Bruno and Sav, they have the opportunity to contribute in a lot of ways. And so I just think now, there's always, when we're out recruiting, sure, you're going to identify, it's nice to have some of your staff that are just POs especially if they're going to be, throwing a lot of innings for you. Because it's difficult to fit in a bullpen, to fit in defense, to fit in hitting circuits every day. I mean, and fortunately, Sav and Bruno have the right mindset. They're players that come early and stay late every day. And that's what it's going to take for them to be really efficient in both of those roles. And sometimes they have to come in early to get their bullpens in. So they're not trying to cheat or take, shortcuts in any facet of their game right now. And to me, that's a mentality that we've been missing. And so it's just contagious when you see that. They want to win, they want to get better, they want to contribute, and they want to be everyday players. And so I love that we have a good mix of POs and a couple players like that can still contribute in other ways.
What do you have offensively as we move offensively? Who are some of the players there? We talked about Bruno and Sav. Who are some of the other players you expect to lead there, and perhaps even some of the new faces that will contribute offensively?
Well, I think Lyric Moore has a ton of talent. I mean, she is so strong. Again, another player that just works at her game every day and wants to be great. So, if she probably just wasn't real consistent in the past. I mean, last year was the first time to play the majority of the games for us, but I expect her to be pretty savvy for us in our offensive lineup. I mean, she's a big piece. Sarah Rozak is a sophomore that brings a ton of power. Ashlyn Anderson being a returning senior, she's a player that was really consistent for us offensively last year. She struggled some defensively, but I think offensively she surprised a lot of people for us. Haley Harper's kind of sneaky in the fact that she's just competitive. When you got runners in scoring position, Haley Harper, she's typically in the bottom of our batting order, but she doesn't care. She just doesn't strike out a lot. She puts the ball in play, and she's kind of got some sneaky pops. So, she's a senior and again, another player that just really wants to contribute and do well every day. She just has the compete factor in her. And those are the returners. And then, that are definitely significant pieces to our lineup. Shayna Espy led off for us all season. She's just consistent in her role. She's a player that's probably, I think she surprises people. She just kind of makes things happen, doesn't strike out a lot. But as far as newbies, the new players that are coming into our lineup, we have a freshman, Ainsley Linduff, from Oklahoma. She just has she's a lefty hitter and has a beautiful swing. She's just a gap ball hitter, but she's very consistent. And she's just keeps getting better every day. Presley Limbaugh is more of a power slapper for us. She's an outfielder. Both Presley and Ainsley are both outfielders, which is definitely something that we needed to add to our lineup. So I think those two players will definitely see a lot of playing time. Presley can do a lot of good things. She's more of a power slapper, but she's got speed. She runs a base as well. Really effective at putting the ball in play. So excited to see what she brings to the table. And then we have another one, Haley Kripe, that's just super strong. She's a middle infielder, plays short, can play third. She can pretty much play anywhere, and she is really powerful. She's still kind of learning her swing a little bit, so kind of working through that a little bit this fall. But I think the upside with her is significant. So really excited to see I couldn't write you a starting lineup today necessarily. I think we're close, but I think there's going to be some really significant contributors coming out of our freshman class.
That's a good problem to have when you can't, you have competition, you can't figure out the lineup because, we've talked last year and even, what happened this past year. You've been snake bitten the last couple of years with some injuries. And you mentioned the lack of depth kind of hurt you in some areas with some of the injury bug, but it feels like you feel like you've addressed that. You feel this is the deepest team you've had here a little while that, you're kind of prepared for anything here, it sounds like.
I think so. We've had a few injuries this fall that we're working through. And getting people healthy and being or having to deal with that already this fall has been really nice to see some of the other players step up. So yeah, I mean, honestly, we're going to be returning the majority of our starting lineup from last year. And the nice thing about it is if we do have some injuries or we face some, some stuff moving forward, I think we're just gonna have some good options to go to on our bench this year.
Plus, you mentioned a lot of returners, the experience. You can only coach them, and practice can only gather so much experience. Going through some of the ups and downs like you did last season, that's also going to pay off, I think, for your returners this year, kind of going through that and that experience, especially for the group that was there that close to making the NCAAs a couple years ago.
Right. We lost so many close games last year. We were in, I mean, almost every game, and then somehow we'd find a way to lose it in the sixth and seventh inning. And I always just talk about just losing games by one run is typically just about experience and chemistry. And I think we had a really good group of players last year. We just simply couldn't find a way to win those close ball games. And I'm really hopeful that moving forward this spring, that those players, that's what we talk about every day in practice, is winning the sixth and seventh inning, winning the close ball games, those, getting a shutout, when we need our pitchers to come in and shut the door and those last three innings. That's what we were missing last year. And so, in the circle, having the experience, that's just huge. I mean, we had 2 freshmen, 2 sophomores last year that just, they're just still learning, still trying to figure it out. And, that can't be an excuse for us this year. We just can't have those. It's just not an option. And we talk about that in practice every day, is no excuses. It's not about a lack of experience, and it's not going to be, I think our chemistry right now has just been really, really solid. So, and obviously it's the fall. We're going to go through some adversity at some point for sure. Every team does, but at the end of the day, we've got 23 on our roster and a lot of players that can really be effective for us in the spring. I like our schedule. We've got I'll be real honest. I probably overscheduled us some last year. We had a really, really, really tough schedule. I think we finished maybe around 14th overall in strength of schedule last year with a really young and somewhat inexperienced team. So I don't know what it's going to end up looking like in the RPI moving forward in the spring, but we have a really good mix of really tough teams early on, but also some games in there we should win. So hoping we get off to a little bit stronger start in the spring, and so we're ready for Big 12 when Big 12 rolls around in March.
The balancing act of scheduling, right? It's so tricky because on the one hand, you want to schedule a tough non-conference schedule because that's what the committee likes. You want to get yourself ready for conference. On the other hand, you're playing in the 3rd strongest league, who, by the way, had the last 3 teams standing in Oklahoma City was from the conference. So, and it's going to grow after this year, which we've talked about in the past. So how do you balance that out when it comes to scheduling non-conference, considering the league that you're in and the rosters that you have? How do you balance all that out when you come up with a schedule?
Well, it's kind of tough for us because we have to go on the road the first month because of weather. And, you're going to go through a lot of growing pains and that traveling and just trying to figure out all your, the pieces to the puzzle in the spring. But I think we're a little bit more equipped to what the expectation is moving into this spring. Even though we've got so many new faces and a young group, the returners have been through a lot. They've been through a grind. And so they're excited about having the mix of the schedule. We're opening at Arizona, but, and obviously that's never going to be an easy place to go play. But I think it's going to be fun to be challenged there early on. We're going to go to Puerto Vallarta the next week, which is going to be our first time to go play in that tournament. And obviously some very quality teams that are going to be there. But, then we go to Texas State, play down in San Marcos, which they had a great year last year, but there's some, good mix of teams in that tournament as well. So, and then our 4th tournament will be down in South Florida. And, I think there's just a really good mix of teams that are in those, all the four of those tournaments opening. So again, I think now it's the expectation is winning the games we're supposed to, and finding a way to win some of those against some of those top ranked teams early on will really give us some confidence heading into the Big 12. Because you're
Yeah.
right, the Big 12 is tough. I mean, it's lean, but every team we face in the Big 12 is good.
Is the Big 12 stronger now than it was when you were a player?
Well, do we really want to talk about when I was a player? Because that was a long time ago and they didn't have the Big 12 yet. So unfortunately, we were still, when I was at A&M back in the day, we were independent. So it was really crazy time for us. But no doubt the Big 12 is as good as it's ever been. And obviously, I think that showed that last year with 3 teams going to the World Series. So, I honestly, selfishly feel like every team in our conference should have a chance to be in postseason.
And I know that's something that as always coaches, you've discussed that at length internally about that. The thing I'm fascinated by, you mentioned that some of the opponents are playing. One of them in Puerto Vallarta that you might see there is Liberty and your old teammate, Dot Richardson. What is it? And you mentioned you're going to open in Arizona. Caitlin Lowe's another former Olympian, former U.S. national. What is it about all you U.S. former national team players have gone into head coaching jobs there? Is that just in the water there? Is that part of the requirement when you're playing Team USA? You just get that rub to be going to coaching?
I think it's called competitive spirit. I think it's just that compete factor that is never going to leave our DNA, right? Like, I mean, people asked me last year, my administrators like, Jen, really, are you look at your schedule that you, I'm like, you're never going to be the best if you don't play the best. And I know it's tough. It's a tough road and everybody you play is hard, is good. But I love the opportunity to play the best teams out there in the country. And Caitlin Lowe has done a phenomenal job at Arizona. What she did with that team last year was amazing. She's got a great staff, and they're just, what I love is just looking over there, and those are all former great players that she has on her staff. They're bringing something, they're bringing that competitive vibe every day to practice that is huge. And I know I'm old and it was a long time ago when I played, but every time I go out to practice, I challenge my players every day, just probably more just kind of trash talking with them a little bit because I certainly can't play with them anymore. But, I just, that competitive spirit that's in our DNA is never going to leave. And, I love the opportunity to be able to play Liberty in the spring. It'll be fun. It'll be a fun matchup. Dot's a heck of a coach and she's done great things there at Liberty. So, I'm just hoping that we keep building here and we, maybe my competitive spirit will just continue to rub off on this team and we'll just keep finding ways to be better.
I was gonna say, yeah, you and Dot. That could be. I mean, you two are both pretty feisty, competitive people. There, that could be your friends. I know that from your obviously your great times bonding there with the gold medal. It'll be kind of cool to share that. But once the game gets going, you two will be that'll be kind of intense there.
No doubt, no doubt. I mean, she and I competed every day as teammates. I mean, she was one of the best that ever played the game, but I wanted to be the best too. And I wanted to be as good as I could possibly be. And she made me better every day at practice. And, I obviously she's going to coach her team up. I mean, there's no doubt. She hasn't changed one bit as a coach as she was as a player.
Okay.
And that's what's cool to see is, I mean, she still brings that fire and that energy now just from a head coaching standpoint. So she'll have her team ready. They'll compete. They'll be great this year too.
How have you changed, if you've changed, from being a player to being a coach?
Oh shoot. That's a great question. I don't know. I think the hardest part is knowing you can't get out there and play. Like, when you were a player, it's like, just give me a chance, give me that opportunity, hit me that ground ball, put me in the box, I know that's how I always used to think as a player. And now as a coach, it's like the hardest part is just knowing that all you can do is prepare and write the lineup up and keep trying to stay positive and keep trying to get them to believe in what they're doing. And keep getting them to believe that they're good. They're good enough to be on the field. And that has been my challenge here. And that's right now, that's what we're talking about every day with this team. It's like, y'all, we have the talent now. Now we just need to have the mentality. And I think that that is something that me personally as an athlete, going through the whole national team process, playing, back in the day with the Reading Rebels. And, I actually ironically caught up with one of my former teammates, Lori Sipple, who I played years with. Those players made me tougher mentally. And I'm just hopeful that I'm able to deliver that with my current players now. Is just maybe my mentality, my mental toughness, my passion for the game. That hasn't left me. That has never left me. And I just hope I'm able to share that, and it be somewhat be contagious to my current players.
Feel like Jennifer McFalls, the head coach, and Jennifer McFalls, the player, if they were in the same room, they would get along. That'd be a good mix, right?
I would think so. I mean, they might fight because they both want to win. So, and that's just where I'm at now. Being at the University of Kansas is just winning. We got to win. I want to win. I want to be great. I want this team to believe every day they step on the field, they can compete with anybody that they play.
Couple things have happened since we last spoke when we had you on last year, and I think you should get credit for this. You're like the good luck charm. Number one, Kansas wins a national title in men's basketball, and then football hosts College Game Day for the first time ever in football. I want to start with the Game Day since that just took place recently. What was that like to have ESPN College Game Day for football on campus that week? That had to be pretty exciting and I'm sure for some of your players who probably took some of that in.
Absolutely. I mean, the buzz around here has been phenomenal. Coach Leipold, his energy has just been infectious, and it has been so fun to be in Lawrence the last few months, and just everywhere you go, people are talking about KU football, and obviously, coming off piggybacking, the national championship of Bill Self, and that team was just was huge for this school, this university, this town. But the vibe in the athletic department right now is special. It really is. I mean, I think we're all kind of, we sit back, and it's had so much success in the basketball arena. But Coach Self he's just, he's such a team player too. He really wants everybody to be great. He cheers Lance Leipold on every single day. He cheers every one of our programs on every single day. He doesn't just live in, the basketball world. He's such a tremendous fan and supporter of Kansas athletics. And I just think that's really been fun to be a part of this process over the last couple of years of just everybody getting better here. And so we're all rooting for each other. College Game Day coming to town. I mean, my players were so excited. They were there at 6 a.m. front and center, part of that. I mean, that's just college experience. You want everybody to feel that, especially when you're an athlete, because that stuff just fires you up to like, man, I want this in our sport. And so I all week long, I was preaching them, y'all got to be there. You need to be there. This, who knows if this will happen again, but the experience is huge. And I even actually had a player that worked stage. She's in a journalism major. She got to work backstage with ESPN, and I mean, that's a lifetime experience for her. Who knows what that will lead to? So, I never want to take away the college experience from our athletes. I encourage them to embrace it, feel it, love it. They've been going to every football game. I mean, to me, those things just transfer over to our field as well.
That's incredible. That's a great story. I mean, and you're one of the few schools that could say they've hosted now a game day in football and men's basketball,
Yeah.
and basketball in general. And I mentioned it sounds like yes, that could feed off on the student athletes and the other sports, right? We want them to kind of feel that and that success and that excitement that rubs off on everybody. I know volleyball's having another great season over there as they usually do as well. That all feeds off each other, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I will tell you, it's really a fun environment to be. The camaraderie in our coaching staffs are have been really fun here at Kansas. I can walk down the hall any day and talk to any one of these coaches. Their doors are open. They stop by, they poke their heads in my office, and we share things. And we all want each other to be great. And we're all here to help, listen, support, provide anything we can for each other's programs. And to me, that's just huge. You don't feel like you're on an island here. And in some schools you can feel that way. It can be so big that you just don't really get the opportunity to connect with other coaching staffs. And we're still a little bit small, but we're really strong internally.
Last thing before we let you go, obviously you mentioned the fall, how it's gone, and the schedule, what's coming there in February. What's the couple of ingredient keys for your team to accomplish between now and the start of the season you think will pay off once the season comes around?
Mental toughness, trust in themselves, trust in their own ability, trusting their teammates, and believing that they're good. So much is just, they are putting the work in. So I cannot talk about work ethic, because to me, that's a standard now here for our program. If they want to play, if they want to be great, they got to put extra work in. It can't just come in, our 2 or 3 hour window of practice time. It's what they're doing when nobody's watching. And to me, that's going to be the difference on what our spring looks like this year.
Jennifer McFalls, Kansas head coach, joining us here on In the Circle. Coach, always great to talk to you. Always enjoy getting a chance to catch up with you there. I know it's a busy time, but always appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk to us. Great to talk to you. I know we're going to be talking more as the season gets closer and down the road, but in the meantime, be safe there, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate your support.